Hey guys, it's Goosebumps Completionist, and today I'm bringing you another talk type of video, and I want to discuss a topic that I've been dying to cover because I think this is just a really fun one, and I think most of you will enjoy this. And we're going to be looking at today unused Goosebumps titles and possible story ideas that can be associated with them. Now, the only reason why I want to make this video, and I kind of hope that it gets some sort of, traction out here in social media, is because I want R.L. Stine possibly to come across this video and maybe take some inspiration. You don't have to take my exact ideas, but maybe here's some thoughts or directions, and you can try to go down that avenue and see if you can make a book around it, or, maybe just have fun and listen to the ideas and it become nothing. But at the end of the day, unused Goosebumps titles are quite famous now. I think I've seen a lot of YouTubers out here on social media and even out there on X and other social media platforms talking about unused Goosebumps titles and how they pretty much all seemingly want, just like us diehard fans, to have these books actually made with these titles. Now, there are some more famous ones than others, specifically two from a lost Goosebumps series called Goosebumps Gold, and they're both involved with sequels to very popular books from the original 62. We have The Haunted Mask Lives and Happy Holidays from Deadhouse. Sadly, I'm not going to cover those two in this video because I feel like I can make a whole video just around those two by themselves and come up with many different avenues you can go with those book titles and what have you there. So I'm not going to mention them in this video. But I will be bringing up 5 titles that have been hard confirmed, and I think as of now, they're the only 5 currently known titles that are absolutely unused. And, we can go down the rabbit hole of titles that existed that were replaced with the final product titles and all that, but those don't count in this situation, okay? We're talking about titles that were mentioned by R.L. Stine or heavily implied by R.L. Stine that were going to be Goosebumps books if he can form a story around them, but he just never did. Now, let's share the 5 titles because they do span from back in the 90s up until the late 90s and even to modern day here. So we have these 5 we're going to be discussing here. We have Feeding Frenzy, The Good, the Bad, and the Very Itchy, 43 Freakout Street, and then we have Dimwits of Doom and Morons from Mars. So we have 5 titles to go over, and I feel like this will be a good starting place to begin with, which is Feeding Frenzy. Now, Feeding Frenzy, there's a lot of different avenues that come to mind with just the verb feeding, right? Or the action of feeding, right? You can think about giant fish in a fishbowl eating food. You can think about like sharks. Maybe you can go the whole holiday route with Thanksgiving and stuff like that. Which, honestly, those all sound like sound concepts and ideas. But to me, Feeding Frenzy sounds like something of a spectacle, right? This feels like a title that will imply that a feeding frenzy would occur as a focal point of the story. So my idea kind of circumvents around an idea that I've never seen done in Goosebumps, and that is a family reunion. Yes, a family reunion themed Goosebumps tale. So my general thoughts of how the plot would unfold would be the main character, for example. He or she is said to be going to a family reunion of some estranged relatives that they don't know, right? These are complete strangers to them. These are people in their side of the family that they've never met. They know nothing about them. So there's some stranger danger involved when they get brought to this family reunion of sorts out in their neck of the woods. And as the main character starts to unravel, this side of their family they're not familiar with, they start to learn maybe some grisly secrets. Now, I'm not going to go into too much depth with my idea here, but if you've ever read the short story from Tales to Give You Goosebumps, What's Cooking, I have this idea that this perpetrator of gathering the family together perhaps is some deranged lunatic. I'm not implying, certain things involving eating people or anything, but it could be something gross of that nature that can imply that maybe they're monsters or maybe they're actual human monsters that do horrible things to other humans. You can go different routes with that, but the general idea is that the main character kind of uncovers this secret and doesn't know how to break it to their family without coming off like they're crazy, right? So, yeah, you have an approach of you gotta believe me story here, but the idea would be that they start to try to sabotage this main event to try to steer at least their immediate family from getting tainted by whatever they're about to eat. And whatever the other family members eat kind of exposes their true selves. Maybe you can go to the whole plot twist of maybe this is a rite of passage for the main character, and you can go down that route of they were monsters all along for maybe his immediate family or maybe himself. Maybe this could be a recontextualization of, coming to know who you are in self-discovery, or maybe it can be total opposite of that and kind of discover who you don't want to be, and you can try to fight that. And maybe you could try to tell more thematic messages against the other characters that the main character is presented with. And maybe it could be a story about resisting those urges to be terrible or whatever. There's so many ideas, but like I said, the general idea is you have a family reunion, maybe a cookout going on, and the kid's experiencing estranged family members he's never met, or she, for example. So, feeding frenzy, that's my idea I would go. Now, like I said, there's many different avenues. You can go the whole holiday Thanksgiving route. You can go the shark or fish feeding idea, or maybe you could have it take place at a zoo and make it a zoo field trip book. I don't care. But food for thought, that may be a good starting place for Feeding Frenzy becoming a book. Okay. So the second title is The Good, the Bad, and the Very Itchy. Now this one, I had a weird idea that might involve a blend of a rather obscure Goosebumps short story called Change for the Strange and blending it with a very famous Haunting Hour episode called Mascot. Now, the concept of this one would be maybe a down-on-their-luck sports fan wants to join a team in their middle school, for example, but they're not good enough to join the team, so they are kind of forced to become the school mascot to participate in the sports. And there might be some motives of why the character wants to do this. You don't have to go into specifics now about it, but maybe he might have a crush on a cheerleader. Maybe she, if you want to go the girl athlete route, has a rival that has constantly belittled her whole life, and she feels like an underdog, and her becoming a mascot is kind of a way to try to, at least be with where the team practices, and she wants to show herself to the coach that she can make the team, right? So there's more reasons why she's doing this, right? But that's beside the point. The general idea of either way is that this mascot costume perhaps is cursed, or perhaps has some sort of tie to a very infamous school tragedy, and perhaps whenever the person who wears this mascot costume wears it, weird things happen. And the main character of the story uncovers this information as the story goes along about all these past mascots possibly going missing or going insane after wearing the costume, or becoming totally changed after wearing it. And there's a bunch of different avenues that can become after wearing this thing. And where does the title, The Good, the Bad, and the Very Itchy come into play? Well, for her or his scenario, it makes you do things out of character. It makes you kind of lose yourself. And perhaps, just perhaps, there could be some body possession stuff going on, akin to stuff like werewolf skin or haunted mask. If you want to go that route, that would also be awesome. And it becomes harder to remove this mascot costume because perhaps the main character kind of becomes intoxicated with it and perhaps becomes addicted to how it makes them feel when they wear it, or maybe they feel better while wearing it. And you can possibly interject a friend in the story that is literally there to help coach them out of this mindset, or maybe make them realize that what they're doing is terrible and they have to figure out a way to get rid of this mascot costume or something like that. So that's my thought of that story. Honestly, you can think about the good, the bad, the very itchy, and automatically you're going to go to My Harriest Adventure or My Friends Call Me Monster, about a coming-of-age puberty allegory. like we need that again in Goosebumps. You can maybe think about a werewolf book, possibly. Honestly, I wouldn't mind another werewolf book. It's been a long time since we got one. This could be a good title for a werewolf story. Now, I don't know what Stein would bring to the table at this point, given all the other stories we've gotten with werewolves from him across many different series, but you could possibly go down a werewolf route and completely discard what I just said. But I'm picking the mascot route because technically we kind of got a mascot in Slappy World with Fright Night, but not in the same vein as something like mascot from Haunting Hour. As a matter of fact, now that I'm thinking about it, you can even go down the route that Jake the Snake from Are You Afraid of the Dark did, with this power of this suit that makes you feel better than everybody else, and perhaps it helps you in certain things. I don't know. You can go a weird route with it. As long as it makes sense, I'm cool with it, even if you have to put the disbelief at the door. But yeah, that's just, food for thought for that title right there. The third title, and I can't wait to talk about this one. This one is 43 Freakout Street. Now, I would go a Halloween-themed book off the bat with this. Maybe it could be a play on a different actual street name in the story. So the story could be around a house maybe at 43 Lookout Street, right? And this house is always decorated to the nines on Halloween. And in this neighborhood, 43 Lookout Street is the oldest house in the neighborhood. It existed before the neighborhood was built around it, right? And every year there's a haunted house competition, but this house always wins. And it's fabled by the kids of the neighborhood to be the scariest experience ever. Their older siblings seem traumatized after going inside of the house, and nobody seems to know why, right? Well, the unsuspecting group of kids that are the main characters of the story, maybe led by an unsuspecting main character protagonist, get this bright idea to maybe sabotage 43 Lookout Street this upcoming Halloween, because they desperately want their house to win, and whoever the family is that lives in it not only has ties back to the original owners who built the house, right, but they seem to have a secret sauce that nobody else in the neighborhood has. So when they try to sabotage the house, they uncover some grisly realizations about the home and realize that the house perhaps might be cursed, maybe with the plot of land it sits on. Maybe it's a portal to a different dimension. Maybe it's a gateway on Halloween to allow supernatural magic to come and flood through it to bring it life. And maybe things that are decorations inside of the house become not decorations, but actual living things that can inflict harm on children, which is why children for years seem to be traumatized by going inside of the house. And as they uncover that realization, they have to spend an entire Halloween night pretty much trapped inside because they got caught doing what they were doing, and they have to get themselves out of the situation and save themselves or something like that. That's just a general idea that you can do with 43 Freakout Street, right? There's also this other similar idea that I've heard kind of thrown around by some friends that I think is a cool idea with the idea. So instead of it being on Halloween, perhaps you can go the whole route of this house is just a generic haunted house. It's a fabled thing in a neighborhood, and it's maybe a rite of passage for kids to go visit. Does that sound like The Haunter to you? Yes, it does. But you can easily try to remake The Haunter by doing a different angle. Instead of a kid meeting a ghost who tries to bring out some of the worst qualities and blackmails them and all of that to get its way, maybe, in fact, that these kids that go into the haunted house, instead of encountering a ghost that blackmails them, they encounter a ghost that kind of warns them that the house that they just wandered into is a dimension of the living, is a dimension, dividing point of the living and the dead. And you can go the whole Scream Team route where they uncover these ghosts that are basically out to catch this big bad ghost that is said to live there or live nearby. and they're now tasked to go capture this ghost and bring him into captivity. And if they don't succeed because they found the location of these ghosts, they're going to be haunted forever, possibly possessed, possibly even killed and taken to the afterlife or something crazy like that. I don't know. There's so many different avenues you can take with this title here, but I like the Halloween haunted house competition angle the most. That one just seems the most congruent with vibes that I think a lot of us are looking for. It's been a while since we got a Halloween book. And I don't know. It feels like that one rolls a bit better for me. I don't know. But to each their own. If you think there's a better idea out there for that one, shoot it. But that's all I got for that one. All right. Now moving on to the fourth one, we have Dimwits of Doom. Now this one, I struggled with finding a adequate concept without being kind of rehashy. But I did come up with one that I think would be a fun inflection and an inversion of one of my favorite Goosebumps books of all time. Are You Terrified Yet? But for Dimwits of Doom, perhaps the inflection is you have this maybe a girl or boy character who has this natural attraction to get weird friends. But here's the idea, and here's where I'm leaning with. All right, just hear me out. So the whole concept is, maybe it's a girl character. I'm kind of leaning to that idea where she's like popular at her former school. She has to move school districts and she thinks it's going to be easy to make friends. However, when she moves to her new school and notices the social hierarchy of things, she notices that she's kind of like Katie Heron from Mean Girls. She's on the bottom of the totem pole and she befriends these two, like, you know, unorthodox friends, right? And if you're not familiar with where I'm going with this, basically, you take Are You Terrified Yet, but make it Mean Girls, right? It's going to be a mean-spirited book, but it's supposed to be something you don't take seriously, okay? So the girl is like, okay, well, how do I climb the social ladder? And the friends are like, well, that's easy. You got to get rid of this mega B at the top of the social ladder, so-and-so. And here's how you do it. We got to prank her, make her scared, blah, blah, blah. Yes, we're going the you can't scare me route, but here's the twist. Here's the twist in it all. It's not that she is the bad guy or this mega B at the top of the social hierarchy that are the bad guys. It's actually these friends that she's befriended. And the only reason why these two friends of hers are doing this against her is because she's so vain. She possibly doesn't even recognize the fact that she put these kids on the bottom of the of the social ladder at their former school. And since they're the bottom of the ladder here, and she's now one of them, it's their chance to get even. Well, you can hit that point of revelation in the story where the main character realizes that she's basically been set up most of this book by her two friends. Now, here's the twist. Maybe she has a change of heart. Yes. Character development. Yeah. Hard to believe in a Goosebumps story, right? But she maybe makes amends with the mega B at the top of the social ladder. And we get some revenge at the end of these two friends kind of, you know, that have been screwing with her the whole book. But you can throw a double-decker twist with the friends also having a backup plan. Because if you think about it, the story's narrative would make it that they're the real victims here and not the main character in the mega B at the new school. And everybody gets their way in the end in some fashion. And it's basically a whole play on revenge is bad. Yes, it sounds very catty. It sounds very juvenile. It doesn't really sound supernatural or scary. But it's kind of like You Can't Scare Me. Maybe you can have an urban legend kind of propped up. You can go maybe Prom Night 2, Hello Mary Lou, but for kids. If you really wanted to throw that in there as well as a weird random twist where it's a Deus Ex Machina of the main character possibly being killed or dead, and she moved to this new school unknowingly as a undead denizen kind of creature. I don't know. You can go many different avenues with it, but that's my general setup of the idea. Now you can tweak it to make it fit or whatever, but this would be a definite slice of life story, and it plays into the idea of Dimwits of Doom. These two down on their luck friends that are pretty much on the bottom of the social hierarchy want revenge on the girls at the top. Yes, it sounds like Heathers, it sounds like Mean Girls, but it would be for kids, and it's not going to be that mean-spirited at the end of the day. I feel like it's going to tell many different avenues and perspectives on, you know, on each character's, you know, journey in the story, or how they ended up where they're at. And I think it'll make you think a little bit. Yes, it might not be a popular book. It might be controversial off the bat, but that's literally the best idea I can come up with, that, because unless you want to go into the whole thing of doing intelligence insulting stuff about demeaning people with learning disabilities, I don't know where else to go with this one. So that's all I got. Now for the last one, this one ironically is called Morons for Mars. Now think of the title itself, morons. So these are people that aren't smart. These are people that are gullible, you know, easy to, you know, get over on, kind of naive, gullible, whatever the case may be. But they're from Mars, so they're aliens. Obviously, you're going to go an alien route. But I did manage to scrape up an idea that I think would be kind of funny. So this story would be kind of like openly ridiculous. Kind of like a Fright Night from Slappy World. Like, this is something you just can't take seriously off the bat, right? Well, let's say in a hypothetical world, Stein wanted to make this story kind of like a fantasy up front. Humans and aliens go to the same school, right? And let's say the main character takes a placement exam and is put into a classroom with majority alien kids. And he's kind of taught and brought up that alien kids are weird and they're not as smart as humans. And the only reason why they're on this planet is because they were so dumb or whatever. They destroyed their own planet. Now they need to live on Earth with us and peacefully coexist and all this. Yes, I'm talking about that subject matter, but it's done in an innocent way. So the kid is like, okay, well, maybe I'll befriend this alien kid, right? So-and-so, right? You don't even have to just put a name on it yet. But as the human kid befriends the alien kid, they start to realize that maybe these aliens are going to doom humanity. And they go through the story and they uncover this ridiculous, just like, string of events that have pretty much put the aliens kind of like in a Conehead scenario where they're going to be essentially sacrificing humanity because they think that this needs to be done for whatever god they worship or whatever, space god, or, you know, if you've ever seen Jimmy Neutron and you know about, I think the Goop aliens from the movie, you can go that route with it and just be silly. But where I would go with it is that these aliens really have no idea of what planning anything is. Like, everything just happens and they just come to these quick conclusions about things, and they are trying to doom humanity, and it's up to this kid to kind of have to save humanity in that ridiculous way. But you can go the whole fun plot twist involving that, where you can kind of recontextualize the string of events, how the aliens ended on the planet to be humanity's downfall, and perhaps it involves some characters that we see in the story, perhaps not. I don't know. But the whole concept and idea of Morons for Mars is kind of like a play on the title itself and the perception of people who are different. This would be a more thematic story. Of course, like I said, the tone is something you're not supposed to take seriously. It's played up like a huge farce, but you can peel back the themes in it and you can have fun with it. This would be a book to have some self-deprecation humor in it, to make it more fun and lighthearted in the reading enjoyment of it. And you, like I said, because they're aliens and they're not technically humans, I feel like you can kind of go into the stupidity angle of them just because of their, you know, special differences and maybe the way their brains operate as a species. You can play around with that, but when you start getting into like human characters, I get why that's dicey, and maybe modern Scholastic will not touch that idea with a 10-foot pole. I don't know. But that's literally the best I can come up with there. It's just, it would be something played up straight up like a parody. So that's all I got for that one. If you have any ideas that are better, I mean, there's plenty of alien stories in Goosebumps already, and I can't really find an idea that doesn't feel like a straight up rehash of anything else. So that's the best I got there. But anyways, yeah, that's my hypothetical stories I would put around these unused Goosebumps book titles. Let me know down in the comment section. Do you like some of my ideas? What would some of your ideas kind of stem to? Which one of these titles do you actually want to see in a Goosebumps book, perhaps in House of Shivers or future installments in different series potentially down the line? Do you want all 5 to get made? Do you want just a handful to get made? Which one is your absolute favorite? Which one's your least favorite? I'm dying to know all of that. So let me know down in the comment section, and I'll see you next time.